how to love people, how to love yourself. He talked about famines, pestilences, and wars. You need to examine the way that these things operate within you, because the internal then manifests outwards. Right? So when there are wars, wars inevitably begin when people disagree about something, and somebody decides, well, as a result of you not agreeing with me, I'm going to attack you. And when you meditate, you'll see that there are parts of you that disagree with other parts of you, and then you have to observe to what degree one part attacks the other. Okay, here's a very simple example. Right? Somebody says, oh, it's tax time. And, well, we should do everything right because we want to have a clean conscience. And then another part goes, well, I'm not going to declare these cash tips because there's no way I'm going to give that money to this corrupt government. And then my heart goes, yes, but Jesus said, give to Caesar that which is Caesar's, which means you give to the government, because the government is us. Maybe it's corrupt, but it's people trying to govern for people. You're not going to equate me with those people. So there's a conflict inside. Like, I don't want that attitude because it means I have less for myself. That's the illusion. So I come up with some way to crush that part that wants to speak for truth. And that's a war. And that's not good. It would be better if the two parts went, this is really frustrating that I have to give money to corrupt government. And then the part of me that loves goes, I know. So we could either strive to be in government and try to purify it, or we accept and we vote and we allow humanity to painfully evolve. And now there's agreement. It's like, okay, so I got to give up the taxes, right? No. Yeah, you'll sleep better. We'll sleep better. So we have this amazing ability to resolve conflict through the use of language. Wow, how novel. Instead, we spend billions of dollars building weapons of destruction to demonstrate how I'm stronger than you. I can blow up your country, if I wanted to. I mean, it's very immature, but it's scarily a real thing. What about famines? Well, you go, what part of me is starving? Probably the part that loves truth, the part that longs to be understood, the part that wants to feel loved, is in a state of famine because I'm looking in the wrong ways. Do you sit there and feed yourself positive feedback? Every day do you go and go like, well, here's some things that I did that I thought I did pretty well today? Do you give that attention to yourself? When yourself is hurting and lonely, do you sit there and comfort yourself? Or do you go, I must find a boyfriend, I must find a girlfriend, I must have something from outside of myself to be admired and loved and worshipped, and then I'll be able to relax. You may be able to relax for the 5 or 10 minutes that you get that feedback. And then what happens when the person goes, I changed my mind? Which many of us have experienced. Somebody goes, I don't want to love you anymore. They don't say it like that. They just stop responding to your texts. Or something along those lines. But you can love yourself. You have to learn how. It doesn't mean I go to the spa and I sit and put hot rocks on my neck and I eat a lot of comforting foods. I mean, some of that is fine. Having a day of pampering is fine, but that's not really loving yourself. Not at the depth that I'm talking about. Like, you want to be a strong individual in society and not be knocked around by every negative experience. You build strength by loving yourself. And you do that by communicating to those parts of you that are compromised and are hurting, and you do that in meditation. And I know it's not as satisfying as when somebody else does it. That's true. It's like, do I have to do that for me? So, well, what are the alternatives? You wait around and try to coerce somebody else to do it. And maybe, this is the whole quest for my soulmate, the one person who loves me exactly how I want to be loved. It's a lot of pressure on a person. But if you can do it for yourself, then you rise up and you go like, I'm basically okay. Some days are better than others. And then you meet somebody and you can give the kind of love that you've learned how to give to yourself. And maybe they happen to find that really appealing. And so the two of you come together. But it isn't this like we are glued to each other because without you I crumble into a pool of dust. Well, dust wouldn't really be a pool, but you know what I'm saying, right? A pile of dust, perhaps. Pestilences. Well, we know that many people have had a problem with alcohol, right? So you might go, what's eaten me from inside? That I get driven to do these behaviors, that I can't stop once I start. You could look at a pestilence as a form of something that is eating you from within and you cannot, it's an obsession. Because when you see those pictures of, the locusts come swarming in and they just eat everything, and it's just kind of like scary in a way. And then when you look at close-ups of these insects, they look really scary. They don't look, well, they're not human, but they look very inhuman. They're just going to eat everything. And that's kind of what these addictions do to you. They overtake your reasoning function, and you just have to have more and more and more. So these conditions that are talked about in the Bible, they begin as internal conditions, and you can resolve all of those. But if you don't know the tools you're working with, because you don't have any kind of internal process to study your mind and study your heart, and recognize the way that you're doing these very things, then you're going to look outside and you're going to read all sorts of self-help books and you're going to go to all sorts of lectures and you're going to try to appease it through this herbal concoction and this CBD oil and all that. And I'm not saying that stuff is all bad, but I'm saying the transformation is simpler than that. It's through a change in your understanding of yourself. Now this part you're not going to like, but Donald Trump got this on one level. Because remember when he got COVID, he was like, it's no big deal. And that's actually true. I mean, him and his wife, they moved through it relatively quickly. Now, he did not have the spiritual awareness or the articulate way, but he was kind of going like, this is not that big of a deal. Now, the people were like outraged at that because their friends were dying or their parents were dying and they couldn't see their aging parents because of it. So people's emotions were very inflamed by such an attitude. And that's not really the way to go about it, to go, it's not really a big deal. It's a big deal because we're not examining what's actually leading to it. But there was an element to what he was saying that was true. And when you hear that, you can question, like, does that make you, well, I can't like any part of him. Well, then you've still got that warring part in you. Because there were things that he said that were spot on. So why is that a problem? It's a problem if there's a part of you that can't like any aspect of that guy because of these certain things that you dislike. And that's just an indication where you go like, oh, I still got a war inside because I'm not prepared to love this person because I don't agree with these things that he said or did. It appears as though there's a lot of work to do. Okay, Jesus said the road is long and the gate is narrow and it's hard. But it leads to freedom. So let's do it.